I don't know if this video will reach Asmon, and if it doesn't, that is okay. The main goal of this video is to express the situation in a manner that is definitely less toxic than what Twitter can produce. I'll explain why they're angry at him and also how the problem can be alleviated or fixed. And to preface, I've been subbed to and have been watching Asmongold for the better part of a year now on my alt account, and he does get a lot of hate for what it is that he's saying. And that's primarily because people can't come to terms with the reality of what it is that he's saying. Other times, he receives hate for what is practically a justified reason, like this whole Alatreon debacle. So, let me explain. If you're new to my channel, I'm primarily an educational Monster Hunter content creator, and I usually do speed runs on the side. There are many people out there who will just tell you how to get good at the game and explain things as they happen, or how to create a good set that's meta, but not how to understand the game. That's the core fundamental. Understanding, and then everything else. This is why I created my How to Actually Improve series, as the well of knowledge has been tainted. There are just as many people who will pick up a game because it piqued their interest or a friend told them to get it, but they don't want to learn the game. They just want to be good at it, or they're expected to be good at it by their friend. The personal problem that Asmon has is that he's the type of person who will think logically about particular issues in his stomping grounds like WoW or Elden Ring and maybe even life stuff, and then leave it on life support when he enters any other game like Remnant 2, Power World, and Monster Hunter. He even admitted himself in his Remnant playthrough, he is stubborn. The way that someone like him would use their head is completely different from the way that I would use my head. I use my head to formulate a plan on how I'm going to go over, under, or through that wall. Asmon, on the other hand, uses his head to repeatedly bash into the wall until either he or the wall breaks. And if it doesn't break, then there's a problem. And sometimes that wall is spray painted yellow, wink wink, and it says knock twice to open. And yet he's still just bashing his head. A core fundamental of the modern human design is the ability to read. So when people ignore it, it kind of gets other people angry. Which leads us to why people are angry with him in the first place. Well, on the Monster Hunter side, that is. We'll start with what the Alatreon drama is all about. The Alatreon controversy was brought upon by the added mechanic of Eschaton Judgment, mixed with the title update's consistent power creep. Blast weapons, particularly from Raging Brachydios, were the meta at the time due to their sharpness, high raw, and blast properties. And when I say raw, I mean base attack, not anything element, just raw. When Alatreon came out, they explicitly stated that you would need elemental damage in order to knock off the Super Mega Death move, but it was hidden behind a DPS check. So the first one in Monster Hunter history, and personally, I hope to every god in existence or non-existence that it never shows up in another Monster Hunter game ever again. Monster Hunter does not need MMO-like mechanics in a game that is a action RPG. Tangent aside, Alatreon was not only challenging, but he was also punishing you for failing to fight him properly. So players were forced to use elemental weapons and fight against a difficult monster that has MMO mechanics. Shitstorm isn't even the right word to call it. If they had just left out the Eschaton Judgment mechanic, it would have been an excellent battle. In fact, because of the controversy, I was creating a video talking about how the Metal Rats do a better job at being Alatreon than Alatreon, which will come out sometime soon. It's just very convenient timing. Second issue, Dragon Blight, Blast Blight, buff indicators. Anyone who isn't mentally or emotionally unstable should know this is not a diss, but more of a respectful critique. Asmon is intelligent, but he can also be a sped dumb fuck. Okay? Let's put that out there. If we were friends, this would be a man-to-man conversation. He criticized the Corvus account by claiming that the person who was angry at him, or the people that were angry at him, by his words, he wasn't playing the game the way that they thought he should play the game. This is unfathomably wrong, and it detracts from the criticism that is entirely justified. The tweet says, reminds me that when Asmongold first got to Alatreon, he read the entire tutorial out loud, went into the quest, spent almost 2 hours without even knowing that he's dealing 0 damage from element because he has Dragon Blight, even though the handler keeps yelling, "You got Dragon Blight." He then says he doesn't know the indicator for Dragon Blight. Now here's where all 3 of the aforementioned issues could be solved. Dragon Blight has visual, auditory, and hieroglyphical clues to let you know that you have it. Yes, you do not have Fire Blight or Ice Blight, but it has ways for you to understand. But first, let's talk about what Dragon Blight is. Dragon Blight removes element and status properties from your weapon for as long as you are inflicted. Visually, it is a black mist with red sparks or lightning that swirls around your hunter when you are affected. Whenever you hit the monster, you'll see blue numbers that represent the loss of element or status properties. Auditory cues come from the sparking sounds, and to be fair, both the visual and auditory cues can get drowned out by both sight and noise pollution of combat. But there is a mechanic or a system where the handler says you have Dragon Blight, cleanse it, or you won't do any elemental damage. Now, in terms of hieroglyphics, they are shown above the status bar alongside any other buff or debuff that you may have. If you are not well versed in understanding that green means good and red means bad next to a sword or a shield icon, then you are in luck. For a long time now, the game has had a feature called the Hunter's Notes, which you can go in and read at any time. They are poorly segmented and do not explain as much as they should due to the fact that they implemented a tutorial section. But hey, shit menu for a shit game, eh? That's what I'm saying, bruh. Anyway, under the basic controls tab, you can see status boosts and ailments. Status boosts will show you what buffs you are likely to encounter under normal circumstances, but it is entirely missing the affinity increase, element increase, and status increase icons as shown with the Safi Jiva armor. If you go under the ailments section, you'll see all the different types of status related issues. In that section, you can see every debuff, and would you look at that? Dragon Blight, which shows the icon it would use alongside the effect. Bada boom, bada bang, that's all she wrote. Now, in his defense, however, there are only 5 monsters in the game that can apply Dragon Blight, and if you don't know the Hunter's Notes exist, then you don't know to look for it. It's also chat's fault for giving him answers rather than just pointing him in the direction of how he can find these answers, but that's neither here nor there. Last issue, Blast Status and Frostcraft. I'll cover this quickly, but slowly. Blast is one of 4 status attributes in the game alongside poison, sleep, and paralysis. And status, unlike element, is a chance per hit to apply a buildup of that status. When it reaches the cap, the effect goes off. In the case of Blast, it does a fixed explosion damage to the last part that was struck. No, it should not be fire just because the explosion has fire properties. Don't think like that. Because if that were the case, all gun lance shells, regardless of element, would be fire. All bowgun explosives would be fire. All switch axe discharges, regardless of element, would be fire. It's not how this works. There's plenty of games with elemental attributes that do not follow the conventional aspects for explosions, such as Pokemon, making self-destruct and explosion normal type moves. Borderlands, which has an entire attribute based on explosion. RoboQuest, the best, by the way, free plug, I don't care, the best action first-person shooter roguelike to ever exist, has explosion properties that can be boosted by elemental. By that same regard, Should Bunahabra and Vespoids paralyzing you be considered water damage because it's technically fluid? Should all poison be water because technically it is a liquid or a gas? I mean, what are we talking about? They are status because they encompass a status. If you don't know, look up Monster Hunter 3 Brachydios weapons. They weren't considered blast yet, they were considered slime because that was Brachydios' special property. They only started adding blast to other weapons after this game. Now, as for Frostcraft, I can't defend it that much. Okay, that's just being fair. He should be allowed some type of leeway on the matter. Yes, if you read it, it just says raises attack. For the skill info of Coalescence, it says it raises attacks with an S, and that means raw, element, and status, which it clearly lays out in its description of the levels. Frostcraft does not have that. Frostcraft just increases base attack for the gauge that you have in the bar. It isn't clear, so the vocal minority of people who may overthink this concept or coming from other games with conventional norms, it would appear like it adds ice. I can completely understand that because yes, it does make sense. It says Frostcraft. Maybe it just means more ice damage because it is coming off of an ice monster. It would make sense, right? But they didn't say adding raw. They should have said whoever translated this or whoever is increasing or making the values should just say it adds additional raw damage or increases base attack. That would be great. That I can concede because it is a good point to bring up. Anybody coming out of any other game who maybe plays a lot of fantasy games and things like that would just think like Dark Souls, you add fire to your weapon, you add magic to your weapon, you add lightning to your weapon, you add ice to your weapon. It gives you those properties. Frostcraft is just, oh my god, my sword is glowing blue. I now do more damage. So long story short, they should just indicate that better. I will say that. So the main concept that I want for you to take away from this entire video is that for the most part, the Monster Hunter community has always been a welcoming one. And it definitely wasn't perfect, but with the release of World, there's a whole host of new personalities and types entering the fold that may come from games where being toxic, critical, and selfish is the norm. Things like this are going to happen more often. And while I have my own personal thoughts on the matter, I would like to say that you can discover anything about this game you can find within it or from others. This is also a game whose formula had to change to bring in more sales for better and for worse. Yes, we get it. Asmon said some dumb shit, which would put any long-time knowledgeable fan of Monster Hunter off, and he's about as casual as they come. Rather than going out there and attacking and insulting him, try to at least tell him what's going on. If he can see a tweet from a nobody talking about how shit he is, he can see a tweet from a nobody telling him how to course correct. And this isn't just for Asmon. This is for anybody in the community, anybody who plays the game, anybody who is out there making those opinions. At least try in a civil manner to tell them what they're saying is wrong. And if they don't want to listen, if they want to be belligerent, if they want to go out of their way to shit talk you and anything about you or whatever that may happen, you have free will. However you choose to respond is how you choose to respond, because the way that they responded to you has now given you the green light. If you agree with me or you have your own opinion, you can leave it down in the comments, or you can just be a lurker like I am and leave a like or dislike and just carry on with your merry way. Either way, I'll see you next time.